Okay, we're answering the question, French tomato sauce. This is a really good question, and the answer you're going to love. If you make this dish and taste it, you're going to say, I didn't know tomato sauces could taste this good. Let's just quickly make the distinction between what we're calling Italian tomato sauce and French tomato sauce. French tomato sauce, which has bacon and white wine and other fresh herbs, possibly like tarragon in it, that Italian basic tomato sauce might not have in it. The distinction is right there: bacon fat and bacon, and white wine. Other than that, it's not any different than the Italian tomato sauce. So this is Italian tomato sauce with bacon and bacon fat and white wine. And that's how the French make tomato sauce. If you look into they'll use bacon or some kind of pork in the cooking process, you know. So we're going to use regular bacon, and I'm going to talk to you for a second here about rendering bacon, okay? Now, we're going to use canned diced tomatoes and juice, by the way, for both sauces. We're going to begin with the French tomato sauce by cutting up the bacon. And I forget how much bacon is in this recipe. This is about a pound of bacon here. We're going to use, I'm going to cook it all because I'm going to eat whatever I don't use here probably, or throw it in something else. You're going to cut the bacon up into pieces that you want to be the size that would be appropriate to be in the sauce. Okay, so whatever your intention on making the sauce is, that's how you would want to cut the bacon that size. And we'll throw the bacon on a half sheet pan. And we want to cook it down so that you're going to get as much fat as you can out of this without making the bacon too crisp. You want to not see any big pieces of fat, because you want to use that rendered fat to cook your onions and so on for the French tomato sauce. So I'm going to pop this in the oven and let the oven do the work on this. Trying to render this on top of the stove is okay, but it doesn't give you as complete of a process of separating the fat from the meat, which is really what rendering means, okay? So I'm going to pop this in the oven for a minute. I would say probably more like 15 minutes, in this case at about 400 degrees. And then we'll go right to step 2 in the French sauce when I take that out. Okay, the bacon has been rendered for the French tomato sauce. And there it is. I have some bacon fat here, some bacon. Now we're going to start this tomato sauce off by using the bacon fat. If we don't have enough bacon fat, we're going to supplement it with a little bit of whole unsalted butter. Okay? So we're going to put the bacon fat in the saute pan. Like so. We're going to add the bacon to the sauce also. Onion. And I'm going to put a little bit of thyme into the onion with some pepper. Give that a little mix. We're going to chop up some basil and some tarragon, and you certainly could use oregano. You don't need any of these three either. You can just go with the thyme if you wanted. But I kind of like to add a little flavor to it. But the basic tomato sauce wouldn't necessarily include this, and I consider this to be kind of basic too. It's slightly one cut above. It doesn't really alter what you can do or use the sauce for. The basis of this tomato sauce can still be processed in many different directions without being negatively affected by the fact that there's basil and tarragon in it, you know. So we throw some basil, tarragon. Onions are already cooked. It doesn't take that long. Now we're going to add the garlic. Looks like a lot of garlic, but it is not. Cook it just for a second, being sure that that garlic does not burn. Now we're going to add white wine. And we're going to let that reduce by about 75%. We're going to take the bacon while that's going on, chop it up just a little bit more now that it's cooked. Any bacon fat that's left on this pan is going inside here. I think the bacon is a very welcome addition to this particular sauce, the bacon fat. Now, one could even put a drop or two of liquid smoke in this sauce if you didn't think you got the effects that you were looking for from adding the bacon. Well, so let's throw the bacon right in the reduction. Kind of maximize the use of the bacon by extracting more flavor, so make it more distributable among the tomatoes when we add the tomatoes. Excuse me. Not going to take long for that to reduce. It's in a nice wide pan. Now, one of the things I'm going to do after I finish the completion of the basic French tomato sauce is I'm going to make a mushroom cream tomato sauce out of it. So while that's reducing, I'm going to quick get the mushrooms cut up for that. I'm cutting them in half and then slicing them. One of the things that you should learn in the totality of this particular class about making stocks and sauces is that advancing the use of the basic sauce so that it becomes more complex as it goes along. Now, the basic French tomato sauce which we're making, although it's good all by itself, and I would certainly eat it with all kinds of food and not have to make it any more, quote, advanced, if you will, it becomes even more special when you add a little bit of cream and some sauteed mushrooms to it. Now all of a sudden you've got this creamy white wine tomato mushroom sauce, you know, with bacon in it. That sounds like a lot, doesn't it? It sounds good, you know. Okay, the wine is reduced, and let me show you what that inside of that pan looks like there now. We have a combination of onions, herbs, bacon, garlic. You got a big good shot of that, Richard?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So there's your reduction. And now let's add the tomatoes with its juice from the can. Throw a couple more tomatoes in there. When you're making sauce, understanding the principles and basic formulas for making sauce is first and foremost the most important part about making sauce. But once you understand that, the actual amounts of ingredients that are put in or taken out or whatever are handled and become part of or not part of the sauce, you can eyeball most of this with your experience because you understand how the sauce is made anyway. So in terms of how much of which flavor ends up in the sauce, this becomes a detail that's not significant in the true outcome of the sauce, because knowing how to make the basic sauce really well is the primary thing that you need to know. So if I put this much tomato, or I add 2 more cups to it, or I add an additional cup of white wine, or I mix some red wine into the white wine, or I add the basil or don't add the basil to this reduction, these are all, although they're significant in the big picture of the final sauce, they're not that significant because the basic sauce is good, and that is what you have to understand how to do. Then all of your additions, they just make it better, okay? So this course, again, is about the basics, but we touch upon things that take it to a slightly more advanced region of cooking, okay?